Plan C podcast, coming at you on a Thursday night. I don't know if we're going to post this on a Thursday night. I think we're going to post it on a Saturday or a Monday. We'll see. Anyway, today, as you can tell by our lovely title, talking about gatekeeping in life, whether it's professionally, politically, in relationships, in friendships, with strangers. It doesn't matter. We all do it. Yes, we all do it. Sorry to tell you. I am guilty of it. Cameron is guilty of it. Everyone is. But some people are better about understanding than others. As I mentioned, Cameron is here. Cameron, how you doing?
I am good. I'm chilling.
Yeah. Lovely to hear it. Yeah, this was a great episode. Cameron definitely had a lot to say, and I think a lot of valid points were made. Just as I always say, when we stop trying to understand our fellow man or fellow person, that's when we all lose. And that's pretty much what gatekeeping is, or a part of gatekeeping at least. Make sure you're following us on Instagram and on Twitter at plan_C_podcast. Make sure you're checking us out on YouTube. All of our podcasts go up there, as well as us streaming every Friday night. You can catch those stream replays anytime you want, or join us live when we are streaming Friday, 7:30 EST, baby. That's when we're going. And we're going to get into it. Hope you are checking out previous podcasts. Make sure to check us out on Apple and on Spotify and anywhere else we are. Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts. The list goes on. That's all I got. Hope you enjoy the podcast. See you on the other side. We have returned, as you can tell by a lovely title. Today we're talking about gatekeeping. And if you don't know, Cameron, would you mind providing a lovely definition of gatekeeping?
Well, I don't really have a definition ready, but gatekeeping is just kind of when you determine someone to be unworthy of whatever movement or position that you have, and then keep them out of it, like kick them out of your community for whatever reasons that you have.
Yeah, basically, Oxford Dictionary says the activity of controlling and usually limiting general access to something.
Yeah, in these cases, it's usually access to a community, access to a political opinion group, whatever.
You can literally gatekeep anything. It's just the act of sort of keeping somebody from the information, as Cameron said, the community, certain conversations, opinions. It is viable in many different ways.
And in all of them,
not viable in the you should do it way, but viable in the you can grammatically say, hey, that's gatekeeping. So I think we should start at sort of a point where, we can start where, we have experienced gatekeeping, people who gatekeep, I think it's very easy to gatekeep because people feel very personal about a lot of things these days, and they tie it to their identity, and then thus it's like, oh, you can't be part of this, you don't know XYZ. So yeah, why don't you get us going on that part, because I know you have a lot to say.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's kind of gatekeeping in politics, and then there's gatekeeping in culture. And I think more recently we've seen that they've kind of blended together as people's kind of personal identities and beliefs and morals kind of interject into politics.
Right.
You see that in cancel culture, you see that a lot on the left. And I will say that probably most of this conversation is going to be talking to people on the left, just because that's the political group that I'm most familiar with, and also probably the political group with the most gatekeeping currently.
Oh, for sure, for sure,
Like
for sure.
by such a large margin, it's actually disgusting. But
Is there anything else besides the left and the right anymore? Like, there's
oh
no
no,
in between ground anymore.
not really. You're not really allowed to be because otherwise you'll
No.
get kicked out of either side.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I guess with the right, they have like a lot wider net because
Mm.
they really just don't gatekeep that much because they understand how politics works. But with the left, it's pretty bad. So I guess with that, I guess we should kind of start with purity testing.
What is purity testing, Cameron?
Purity testing is where if someone doesn't reach your threshold of morality or whatever the belief requirement is for your community, or you think that they need in order to have that belief, then you gatekeep them. You kick them out of your community. You say you can't have that opinion. You condemn them, etc. Like you can see that a lot with cancel culture, where you see people being kind of like called up for tweets that they had 5-10 years ago to cancel them today, as if they had the same beliefs, because once they saw that tweet, they said, oh, this person doesn't have the pure beliefs that I have, and therefore they should not be in my group. And then they get canceled, fired, kicked out, etc. And if you don't have that kind of perfect past and the perfect belief system, you will generally be ostracized from a lot of leftist groups and social media, and even personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I just on that, I just think it's so funny that the sort of side of politics that the left is on, we are so much about growth and we are so much about like uplift each other. But then the moment, there's a bit of a disagreement, that all goes out the window. And it's like, how are you gatekeeping growth, bro? Like, what?
Yeah, it's actually like incredibly counterproductive.
Yeah.
It's because like in the reality of politics is that you're trying to get as many people as possible on your side and to hopefully vote for the issues that you believe in. But if you're purity testing everybody, then a lot of the people that may have been on your side, you kick them out because they don't reach some arbitrary threshold, whether it be, I don't know, like maybe they said an ableist word on social media 5 years ago, and now that you kick them out of your movement, essentially what you're doing is you're losing that vote.
Yeah, sort of the similar thing happened with in 2016 when Hillary Clinton declared that Trump voters were deplorables.
Yes.
Instantly, putting a sort of mindset of us against them rather than like, hey, let's try and understand each other.
Yeah, like as soon as you kind of morally detest a certain person for a belief that they have, you've cut off all means of communication. You've given them to the other side, essentially, and you've weakened your own side and strengthened the opposing side. If you want to put it that way, it's like
But it
you'll see
feels really good to tell somebody off, right?
Yeah, it does definitely ruffle your jimmies a little bit when you get to kick them off, but it's like it's split the left a lot over the past few years. You'll see that with like if you're I don't know, like you see a lot of hatred for liberals now. You have hatred towards libertarians. You have hatred towards there's socialists, but then there's also anarcho-communist socialists, and there's like all these sects where people are essentially, the further you go, the more that they're gatekeeping other people from being within their little community or their little echo chamber.
Yeah, because it's like, no, you don't understand. No, you don't understand. You don't understand. You can't be part of this. You can't be part of this.
And essentially it's like if they're not completely with you, and then obviously every side already believes that they're right, which is one of the worst parts of it, and then nobody gets along. You know what I mean? No. Like you can be on the left and you're like, wow, those socialists are crazy, but you can be a socialist and be like, oh, those anarcho-communists are crazy, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's exactly. Like it splits off and to the point where we've kind of lost what we're actually trying to gain, and we're essentially just imploding.
Yeah, basically. And just that fundamental lack of understanding is just, whoo, that's when we lose, baby. That's why we are so divided,
Yeah.
because people are literally gatekeeping understanding and being like, no, you don't understand this. You can't understand this. My ex is worse than your ex.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like whatever, my experience gives me this information, you don't have this experience, therefore you can't make a comment on whatever it may be.
Exactly.
I am black, therefore you can't comment on race issues. I am gay, therefore you can't comment on LGBTQ issues. You know, I'm whatever.
You are not allowed to have an observation.
Exactly.
You are white cis male. You do not have a place in this society.
Yeah,
And
you can run it back however far you want.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and it's a problem regardless.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like because people forget that these kind of barriers or these that they put up are arbitrary. You know what I mean? It's a random criteria, and people weave stories like, oh, they must have always been racist. That's why they posted that in 2012 he said that that Kanye would lick George Bush's butt, and I think that's what he meant when he was, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, you know, it's just random stuff. And it's like, people forget that when you're doing that, you're actually being very toxic towards your own politics. Like, and I'm not saying that some people don't need to be canceled. You know what I mean? Some people need to be canceled and buried underneath the prisons. Sure, whatever. But, you know, with that caveat, most people don't need to be canceled.
Right.
The vast majority of people don't need to be canceled. And it seems like more and more that one little thing and all of a sudden you're kind of like screwed. You know, you're kicked out of your group, you're whatever it may be. There's no understanding, there's no room to change. And it's going to become a worse and worse problem as we see more and more political power go to the other side, and we're going to be wondering why. And we're going to see all these fucking keyboard warriors, and it's going to be their fault. And they're never going to admit it, because people that do this never take personal responsibility for any of their politics. But it's going to become a worse and worse problem. We're definitely going to get into that more in this discussion.
Something I was thinking about when I was, you know, just writing some notes down was X-Men, actually. And, you know, you have your mutants and your non-mutants, and, you know, you have Magneto on the one side, who's always like, it's us against them, like, that's it, blah 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 blah. And then, you know, it always ends in like violence. And then, you know, you have Professor Xavier, who I love the phrase, show them a better path. Like, that, to me, that is just like, fundamentally, I am trying to like show you my viewpoint. I am trying to like help you understand what is going on here. You know, because again, you mentioned it earlier, you know, people are very much about like having conversations with people and being inclusive until, you know, they deem that the person is unworthy.
Yeah.
You know,
it devolves.
Exactly. I've had conversations with people where they're like, wait, why do you have an opinion about this? You're not gay. And it's like, first of all, you don't know my sexuality. I could be bi for all you fucking know. Second of all, like, when did we stop trying to understand each other? I mean, I don't even know if we ever did, because humans are humans, and we have literally evolved from animals. So there's always sort of a defensiveness about us. But it's crazy to me, because, again, the people that are all about inclusiveness and all about like mental health and like this, that, and the third, they are going to be one of the first people to sort of stiff arm you out of a conversation.
Yeah, there's like requirements on having beliefs. Like, I don't know when like having opinions became like Final Fantasy or something like that. Like,
Dead ass, where you need the prerequisites.
Yeah, I need the prerequisite level 5 black male experience to have an opinion on police brutality or whatever. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah. No. And then you give an opinion and then you're immediately hit with the, oh, but you don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's like,
if it's not the opinion that they have already.
Exactly. And it's like, well, maybe I don't. So please tell me. And it's like,
Yeah.
no. Go look it up. Go look it up. Oh my God.
Oh man. Oh, we
like,
gotta get into this one.
That was I've been in conversations before where like I understand it is a bitch to explain shit to people. But if you just tell somebody, go look it up. I say 95% of the time that person is not going to look that up.
It's not only even that. It's that it's being dismissive. Like when you mentioned Professor Xavier, show them a new path. The reason he was such a good character is because he embodied that path.
Exactly.
You see that shit with Martin Luther King. You see that shit with like all of the very important social leaders. They embodied that. Would Martin Luther King say, "Oh, like I really, someone's like, I really liked your 'I Have a Dream' speech. Can you explain it?" He can't go look it up. Like that would be ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think this is where I when I said that people don't take personal responsibility for their politics, it's that whenever you have a conversation with someone that's about your politics, you have a responsibility to make sure that you're presenting your arguments in the way that you think would best affect the end goal.
No, Cameron, they're just trying to dunk on them. Come on.
Yeah, man. They're just trying to dunk on them. But like I've seen this a lot of the time with in the wake of George Floyd, I saw a lot of the time people were like we know people. Yes, we do. People were like, oh, well, if you don't understand like the history of police brutality, you don't understand the history of black people, it's not my, like I've heard, it's not my job to explain to you my history, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? And I can understand that. It's tiring to explain your experience to people. You know what I mean? And it doesn't always feel good. You don't necessarily want to relive some of those experiences or talk about that stuff. However, if you are in the position to explain something to someone that doesn't know about this, someone who's on the fence, who doesn't know how to craft their opinion on a certain issue, I believe if you are politically inclined and you have beliefs that are like, I believe that police brutality is bad and it should go away. If you have any political beliefs, I do believe it is your responsibility to have that conversation.
Well,
it's your responsibility. It's if you're saying I'm taking up the mantle of this belief, then it is your responsibility to explain that belief. I don't understand why that's controversial. I don't understand why people have kind of trouble with this. But if you're not willing to explain your own belief to someone that doesn't know, then you're not really an ally, right? Because you're not actually helping anybody. You're just existing. Like I don't understand why people kind of get this idea that just by existing as a person of color, that all of a sudden you're somehow aiding the movement. No, you don't. No, you don't. If you're a person of color and you somehow exercise your experience to aid the movement, then you are helping. By telling someone to go look something up, you are actively hurting the movement because they've been dismissed. Why would they listen to anyone? Maybe you're the second black person they've ever encountered. The first person they got coffee from, they were nice. They're like, oh, maybe black people aren't so bad. Maybe this issue where that coffee guy said that, oh, I got hurt by the police in some unfair situation. Maybe he was right. And then the second person goes, well, I don't think it's not really my job to explain it to you. I think you should go look it up.
Yeah.
Like,
and
what do you think happens there? Like,
and it's crazy that people are so quick to dismiss others and then still hold like the anger of, well, he's ignorant.
Yeah.
And it's like, you had an opportunity.
Yeah, it's like I like, it's one of the things that I couldn't stand, especially in the wake of George Floyd, was everyone was so angry. And then I asked people like, well, what work do you want to do? What are you going to do about it? Oh, I think we should. The answer I go, I think we should stop. We should stop being kind to these people. We should stop, giving space for these people. I'm like, why? That's the exact opposite of what needs to happen. You're essentially saying, I'm just going to be angry and that's somehow going to help the issue. It doesn't. We saw that it didn't. You know what I mean? Like, sure, we had the whole social movement of everyone coming together and saying that this is wrong. But when it came to actual political reform, these people, you see all these people a lot of the people that were even marching, a lot of the people that were posting on their social media every day, funds you could donate to as if they knew where that money was going. These are not the people that are making things happen. Otherwise, things would have happened. They're like, you would have seen local politicians who then were reacting to the social pressure, but not the pressure of their community. Things would have happened a lot quicker if we said, okay, your local politician must deal with this issue. And in this way, you know what I mean? We just had Eric Adams elected as the mayor of New York, and a lot of the stuff he was talking about is because he's a police officer and he's a black man. They're like, oh, well, obviously he's a police officer and a black man. He would be on your side. He's not. And the problem is that people didn't do the research, and people only saw, oh, well, he's black and he's a dude and he was a police officer, so he should know what he's doing, when he was one of the most shifty politicians that was on the freaking ledger. Come on now. No, people didn't do the due diligence back then. They're not doing the due diligence now. Yet we still have all this anger and animosity. And I don't think a lot of these people actually even have the right to have this anger. Well, no, I wouldn't say that. Let me take that back.
Don't gatekeep emotions now.
I'm not going to gatekeep emotions. They do have the right to be angry, but I don't think they know. I don't think that even though they're angry, they're not using their anger towards anything productive.
Well, because once it's your third day of doing productive things, are you still going to be angry? And then is that motivation still going to be there?
Yeah, like anger's not going to take you across the finish line.
No.
You know what I mean? Martin Luther King he wasn't making speeches because he was angry. You know what I mean? If you go back and listen to any of those speeches, do you hear anger? Do you hear like when you saw Malcolm X at the beginning, early Malcolm X, we need to get arms, we need to fight against those people. That was anger. That turned out badly. He changed his opinion at the end. Did he seem angry? He did not seem angry because he realized that being angry does not actually lead to political change. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There are some times where you need to set aside your personal emotions in order to get to the bigger goal. And it's one of the things where I feel like people have become so sensitive lately that they can't take any type of opposite opinion without immediately resorting to emotions and anger, and they forget what they're fighting for. And that's why we have all these splits. It's because people forget what they're fighting for.
Yeah. And then it gets to a point where it is so personable. I keep doing that. It's so personal that you yourself are getting offended.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think to be angry at somebody and to sort of go at somebody who is ignorant and sort of spreading their ignorance is one thing. But if you're getting mad at somebody for just being ignorant in general, that's just, for me, that's tough. It really is tough because it's like they haven't been in your shoes. They don't understand. They literally do not know where you are coming from.
And there's no way that they would. You know what I mean? It's
exactly.
And it's like, we talk about this all the time. Like, if you were in their shoes, you would think the same thing. And that's it's very true. If you were in that person's shoes that's ignorant and hasn't had the same experiences you have, you would probably have the same opinion. Yep. And so there's no point at getting angry at ignorance. You don't gain anything from it. They don't gain anything from it. But if you see someone that's ignorant and you decide to actually have an open two-way conversation about it, where you're asking questions and they're asking questions, regardless of where they're from, that's how you get to somewhere productive. Maybe they leave that conversation with a positive view, whatever you were talking about, rather than, oh, this person's a real dick. And probably everyone that believes in those same issues is also probably a real dick. You know what I mean? That's what a lot of people come away with, especially when they're on spaces like Twitter and any real social media like groups or echo chambers. That's what people come away with, and that's what gatekeeping is. They tried to learn something, they were ignorant, and they got kept out of that because they didn't already have the understanding. And it's like, well, then what's the point? Isn't the point to gain new people? It's not to just keep the people that you have and try to shave off the people that you don't like. That's not how you build a coalition. That's the opposite of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
And
inclusiveness with a price. Am I right?
Exactly. And on that note, I was actually have a question for
Please.
you. When have you been gatekept or seen gatekeeping in your experience?
Well, touchy subject. Okay. So I have multiple. I'm gonna start with a professional sort of side of things. For those of you who don't know, I am a writer / editor and obviously a podcaster, trying to break into the sports field. And while I haven't personally experienced it, actually, you know what? I have. There's a certain level of like, quote, professionalism that you need to break into the industry. And, you apply for jobs here and there and you get emailed back like, oh, I'm sorry, like, thank you for applying for this position as a podcast editor. And I know you've been working on your own podcast for so long, but we're looking for somebody who is like edited professionally. And it's like, fam, I can listen to your fucking podcast and I am sound editing better than whoever you have there now. So please do not just shove me out because on my resume, it doesn't say I worked at like The Ringer or ESPN editing podcasts,
Yeah.
Yeah. And sort of more personally, if you're listening to this, you probably know who I am. But if you don't, I'm a dude. I'm a white guy. I grew up in an upper middle class household. So, I've definitely been afforded a privileged life to this point. And I have people in my life who, well, maybe they're not in my life anymore, but I would, try and talk about things and understand things, whether it was race stuff, class stuff, whatever it was. And, they'd be like, no, Colin, like you don't understand, you're a white guy. And it's like, all you've done is said truths, but you've kind of made no sense. Because if you're angry at me for being ignorant, but you won't explain to me why, like, just why are you gatekeeping that information? Why are you gatekeeping your understanding? And even if, even if you tell me to look something up and I look it up and I read it, I do a thorough, I thoroughly go through it, try and understand, there's still going to be a disconnect there. Because I personally, like, yes, I have this information now, but I personally may not understand why you snapped on me,
Sure. Yeah.
And in that sense, it's gatekeeping, sort of your understand. It's,
Yeah.
it's gatekeeping your understanding, and that just leads to disconnect.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time people only think about like, well, I need to be understood, but also the person that may not have your experience, I think it's also very useful to understand them as well. It's like, well, why haven't they experienced such and such? What have they experienced that may have led them to a different opinion? Like you need both sides in order to really, first of all, to really understand someone and to also appropriately explain something. You know what I mean? Like if both sides aren't like sharing experiences, then there's always going to be a disconnect between the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that while experience is the best teacher, I think empathy is a close second, because if you are empathizing with people and, you're taking the time to listen to them and to listen to why they feel these things and to try and understand, I don't know. I think that goes a lot further than saying, look it up.
Yeah. And even in this conversation, like I personally, like I've been trying to work on my rhetoric for a while now in terms of how I explain things, because I like, even in this conversation, I get really, really frustrated. And
yeah, I can hear it in your voice.
You can hear it. I get super frustrated because it's something that I've experienced my whole life. Is like when I'm talking to people and a lot of the time I'll even be in spaces with other people that are people of color or other people, whatever it may be, and I hear, and I hear this kind of vitriol towards the other side, and I try to be politically aware in terms of like the things that I say. I want them to positively affect my politics, and I've been in so many situations where I haven't seen that be the goal, and it frustrates me because it makes me lose hope. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like I really don't know like kind of how to say it, but like if you want to, I mean, if you have a political
say that again.
opinion,
Sorry, my thing kind of cut.
no problem. Like if you have a political opinion and you want to be heard and you want to win, you know what I mean? You want this to be voted on. You want things to change. You want things to change. You want to win. Things have to be a two-way conversation. That's it. Just has to be. You can't. There's no way in which you shut somebody down for their race, for their gender, for their experience. There's no way you can do that and still win politically. If you want to win, you have to have good rhetoric that doesn't attack people who don't completely agree with you.
Right. Yeah.
If you attack them, they shut off their minds. You're not going to convince anybody.
Yeah.
You can't. You lose. You're going to lose.
Yeah.
If you want to win, you can't assume that you're right at the beginning of the conversation.
Even if you know you're right. Even if you know you're right.
Even if you, in quotations, even if you know you're right, because you can never actually know you're right. But if you assume that you're
things.
Sure, sometimes, not usually in politics, but in other things. But like you can't, if you assume that you're right at the beginning of the conversation going into it, other people will see that and they won't agree with you just because of that attitude, because it's annoying and they don't you know what I mean? Like they're like, a lot of people aren't going to let you have that win. If you want to win, you have to give people room to change.
But it doesn't feel as good as dunking on somebody.
It doesn't. But if you want to win, if you want to have your beliefs heard and acted upon, if you do not give people the room to change, they will be lost to you. The other side, who is much better at just taking in people that don't necessarily hold the same beliefs, will take them in, and you will lose that person. And in essence, you have also lost. You've hurt your own movement.
Yeah.
And the last thing, I guess, if you want to win, your goal has to be more important than your comfortability. And I think that's very important. If you really want to have change, you being comfortable cannot be the goal. Your politics have to be the goal. Because you being comfortable is not actually politically effective. Because politics make people uncomfortable. There are going to be opinions that other people have that make you uncomfortable. If you act in a way just to make yourself comfortable by releasing that anger, by railing on people, by shitting on people, canceling people, that is not going to help you politically. If you look at the Black Panthers, I'm sure like a lot of people listening to this have watched Judas and the Black Messiah when they got all the different groups and sects to work together. You look at Martin Luther King, who was talking to black people and white people. I don't know why now all of a sudden it's as if like we're against white people and like we still like revere Martin Luther King as if that wasn't a huge part of it. You look at Malcolm X gaining a lot of people that were on different sects together. They worked with people across the aisle to get what they wanted because being comfortable wasn't the goal. They have to sit next to people that made them uncomfortable. People that may be ignorant. They may be racist. They may be, ableist. They may be transphobic. They might be whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, they realized that there was a bigger problem at hand that they needed to solve. And that's how you build a coalition, and that's how you get things done. You need votes, you need community, you need people. If any of your actions are removing any of these things, then you are working against your better interest. And I think this is just like a reality of politics. Like if you don't agree with those statements, then you are most likely hurting your movement and turning people away by creating echo chambers and demonizing your opposition. That I would say that is most likely. And I don't like to, I always feel like I'm somewhat like attacking people. If they have these opinions, they'll probably immediately, maybe they'll shut their ears and they'll be like, oh, he's just whatever.
They will not listen to this whole podcast.
Yeah, they probably stopped listening a while ago. So I mean, what's the fucking point?
That's true. If you're still listening, what's up?
Yeah. But I mean, like, if you're super sensitive, where you think everyone else that doesn't have your opinion is against you, you may be fine now, you may be comfortable now, but 20 years from now, I guarantee you, you will be fucked. And maybe this is something that'll like maybe reach a bit closer, but because if you're continuously shaving off the people, like you're just molding your echo chamber to be smaller and smaller, your political community will have no strength. It's fragile, it won't grow, and just because you're necessarily right doesn't mean anything in the world of politics. Meanwhile, those people that you're shaving off are going to be going to other political groups that will accept them, that are understanding, that are tolerable, and they will win those votes, and they will vote against your policies and win. And people, and maybe you'll be more angry then, oh, things aren't going right. But people should understand that 20 years from now, when those policies are being railed against you, it will be your fault. You will be responsible. And I think a lot of people forget that in that long-term thinking that they do have a personal responsibility to these topics and these beliefs. It's one of the, and when you see things like sorry if I'm just rambling.
No, I'm go. This is good shit.
But if you see things like I like the lack of gatekeeping on the right. I think it's something that's very underexamined because, a lot of the people on the left don't necessarily look into the spheres on the right to see what they're doing well and what they're doing badly and how they keep their power, because a lot of them, like, they're always wrong. I don't know how they keep being politically effective. Well, it's like they have a collective broad goal and they have multiple beliefs that create a coalition that is unified.
Yeah.
And people don't realize how strong that is. There are spaces to be racist, to be like a racist white supremacist on the right. True. There are also spaces to be a super religious black person on the right. And there is also spaces to be an atheist trans gun owner on the right. And none of these groups have any conflict with each other. Candace Owens is a major speaker on the right. She is a black woman that is like essentially Uncle Ruckus, but well, regardless,
that's a different podcast.
This is their podcast. But I mean, regardless, people don't realize how powerful that unity is. They understand that even though, they have people on their side that they hate, there is a greater goal, whether that be if they're pro-life, if they're pro-gun, if they're whatever it is, that is their priority. That is their number one. And they're willing to meet with people across the aisle in order to get that passed. And I'm not saying that we need to try to get racists on the left or whatever, but I think we clearly need to see the differences of tolerability on the right and the left. And when you look at it like that, I think it's pretty clear that something is very, very wrong if we're trying to be politically effective. Because personally, this is just me, I would rather have someone in the community that we can affect and influence that may have used ableist language, maybe even currently use ableist language, than have that person be recruited by another side that just happens to be more tolerable. Why would I choose to lose that vote just because this person says something that makes me uncomfortable? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. No, you're right. Absolutely. You asked me the question, so I'm asking you the question. Even though you probably have peppered in examples here. What parts of your life have you experienced gatekeeping or sort of just noticed it?
Higher education would probably be my
Oh, I didn't even talk about that one. Yeah. Go.
Yeah, and not even there. There's obviously the gatekeeping of getting into higher education,
Mm-hmm.
which I think you'll be able to talk about a lot after this.
Oh, big time.
But also there's within higher education the way that the beliefs that people have, especially if you're in a liberal arts school, if you're in an art school, if you do not have those beliefs, you will be shut down and you will be ostracized.
Yeah, if you don't
I
conform,
if you
bye bye.
you're done. And it's
Yeah.
not like there's any conversation. There's not like there's any type of deliberation. People will just call you whatever negative thing that they just deemed you as, and it's done. I've seen this in any of my humanities classes where we're talking about I believe we're talking about women's and men's rights. I think that was the
Mm-hmm.
issue. Oh man, I'm gonna ruffle a few feathers, probably. But so a lot of the conversation was, it was people kind of sharing their experiences because that's what it always kind of devolves into. People sharing their experiences. I shouldn't say devolve. Experiences are useful, but not it's not always the time and place, especially in class. But regardless, people were saying like, oh, in this situation, as a man, I felt that this was unfair. If this situation I was in a woman, and I felt this is unfair. And what I saw a lot of the time was that there was a girl in class who brought up like, oh well, I think men have some issues, that need to be addressed that I don't think are being treated fairly.
Mm-hmm.
And she was immediately shut down. This is, by the way, for people that like to be politically correct. This is a woman of color speaking about probably men of color, and
Mm-hmm.
how they've been negatively affected, and like 12 white girls just railing on her like, oh well, you like there are way more issues on this side and there are way more issues on, we experience this and that, and that's why these issues are irrelevant and shouldn't be heard. And me sitting in this classroom, the black dude, in this school where it costs, what, like 30 to 40K, depending if you're dorming, to even be there for a year. I'm listening to this like dumbfounded. You know what I mean? Like, you as the white girl going to a extremely expensive college are going to be talking about the experiences of people of color and men that you have no idea about. You know what I mean? That you have no, but you just assume like, well, because I'm like I'm this and I'm that and I have all these experiences that I should be heard first. And to me, that is ridiculous.
Mm.
And it's something that I see time and time again, whether it be, oh well, you're not gay, you're not black, you can run it back. Well, you're a black male, but you're still a male, so you don't have the same type of experience that I do, and therefore you don't have the right to speak on this issue. Oh well, you're not, whatever it may be. And I remember I brought up the point that, when it comes to divorce, like when my parents got divorced when I was very young, my
Shout
mother
out
asked,
Broken Homes.
shout outs. My mom asked me the question like, oh, well, who do you want to stay with? Or what do you want the situation to be? And what I understood that as a kid was that meant that she had the power to decide where I was going to go. My dad did not ask me that question.
Mm.
That is a difference in courts on who has power over children.
Yeah.
That's a disparity in men versus women. That's a men's rights issue. It's real. It exists. Like, let's not pretend like it doesn't. But I was immediately shouted down by like, oh, well, that's just your personal experience, and there are more issues on the other side. That type of mindset, that type of gatekeeping mindset about who can talk about their issues depending on like your personal identity is the problem.
Mm.
And that's something that I experienced throughout a lot of my conversations growing up, like in high school when we talked about politics, in college when I talked about politics. It was always who has the right to speak and which issue is worse. Which issue, who's at the bottom, like who has all the social disadvantages, that you can pile on, and then they can be the most right person in the situation.
Well, because it's
And
clout.
and it's crazy because
Yeah.
I see this all the time with race issues being gate kept. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not being able to have an opinion because you're a white man, a white dude. I don't want to hear this because you're white. You're a white dude. People not being able to ask questions or make mistakes because they're not, maybe he's a straight black dude.
Because I don't have as much melanin in my skin.
Yeah, and it's like people don't even realize that that's, first of all, racist. Like I'm not even gonna hold you. Like that's just outright racist. You know why? Because not all black people have the same experience. And when I hear black people acting like we have the same experience, it's weird, first of all. But like there are gonna be situations in which a black man is going to have general better experiences than a white man, depending on their economic status, depending on where they live. Even when it comes to police, a poor white man who grows up around crack and heroin is probably going to have a lot more negative experiences with the police than a black man that grew up in some parts of Brooklyn. If you're in like Williamsburg, I don't think you're going to have that much of a problem compared to that dude that's living in Bumblefuck, with no money, that's dealing with the police all the time. It's like
Right.
people all of a sudden, when it suits them, race is the most important thing. Gender is the most important thing. Sexual orientation is the most important thing. Disregarding everything else as if that's not discriminatory.
Yeah.
And I think people need to start, whenever someone says, "Oh, you can't say that because you're white," or "I don't want to listen to you because you're a man. I don't want to listen to you because you're." If you switch the script, if I said, if I walked up and told you, "Hey, I don't want to listen to you because you're black. Hey, I don't want to listen to you because you're a woman. Hey, I don't want to listen to you because you're gay. I don't think you have an opinion on this issue." You realize how ridiculous it would sound?
Yeah.
And I think it's something that's just been kind of like slowly pressed into culture. We make jokes about it. We do everything, you know what I mean? And I think it's something it's going to have to end soon. It's a problem.
You got anything else before we get out of here? Because I gotta get stepping.
Yeah, for sure. I guess something's starting soon, yeah. But
yeah, I gotta go do my job, literally.
Yeah, but I guess I would say, but denying people the right to have opinions or determining their person before they have an opportunity to change will actively work against it. And I think that as a community, we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. You know what I mean? Like we always try to like put it off to the other person. I've heard, like I remember when I was talking to people and they're like, "Oh, that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself to be like the perfect black man or whatever that our parents tell us in terms of you have to be excellent if you're a black man in these spaces, whatever." I think that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, and I'm like, it is, and it should be. It should be. When you want to change something, you have to put that pressure on yourself in order to get it done. If there's no pressure on you, if you don't feel uncomfortable when having certain conversations, like if the conversations that you have about politics always make you feel good, then you're probably not actually having like useful conversations. You know what I mean? Like I think people put themselves out there. If there's someone that doesn't understand something, it's not always going to happen. We're always near people that are generally going to agree with us. You know what I mean? That's just how it is. But if you happen to be in the situation where you're with someone that doesn't understand you or wants to understand, please, I am asking you very, very strongly to please watch your rhetoric. Don't get angry at them for not understanding. Don't dismiss them. Please just try to explain your beliefs in a way that they understand. Ask them questions about their life. Let them ask questions, and just do that small little part to possibly get someone to vote for the things that you believe in. Like it's really, it seems hard. It's really not that difficult. And I really hope maybe someone listening to this has had a situation where they blacked on somebody and maybe they were in a situation where they're like, oh, screw all these people, we need to just work by ourselves or whatever. Maybe you believe in that. Maybe you've just talked to someone and had that experience. But I just please ask people to just reflect and really think about how they're impacting their politics in the real world, in their actual conversations. You know what I mean? Not just on Twitter, but even on Twitter. Ask questions.
Have some patience, yo.
Somebody, this is don't just vent.
Patience will take you so far.
You're creating enemies. You know what I mean? To your movement. I mean? You're I just wish people would have that kind of second thought of just wait a second, let that anger pass, have a conversation. You'll probably learn a lot. I know I've learned a lot from a lot of these conversations I've had with people that don't agree with me. And please don't gatekeep people. Don't purity test. It's not helpful.
Listen.
20 years down the line, you'll see the results of it. We all will. Probably won't be good, I'm not going to lie to you. But hopefully we can start now and really have important conversations and let everyone's opinion be worth the same amount. Your opinion isn't worth more because you're black or you're gay or whatever. It's not more useful. It's just an opinion. If you're a white dude, your opinion isn't less valuable. If you're male, if you're gay, if you're whatever, it's not less valuable. Everyone's opinion is equally valuable. I hope we can act that way.
There we go. All right. This has been a very good episode of the Plan C podcast. Thank you if you are listening. Appreciate you. Thank you for stopping by, hanging with us the entire time. If you are still with us and you didn't get angry at stuff we said, honestly, shout out to you. Shout out to your understanding. You're holding it down. Just keep trying to listen. Keep trying to understand. Because understanding, when we stop trying to understand our fellow man, we just kind of throw our hands up and we say, fuck it. That's kind of when everyone loses.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. Make sure you listen to previous podcasts. Make sure you check us out on YouTube. We stream every Friday night, whether it's Smash Bros, Among Us, Mario Kart, Guilty Gear, or League of Legends. We do it all. We are there Friday night. Plan C Podcast YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter. Plan_C_podcast. We are there. We are relatively active. I haven't been doing a great job with keeping the social media active. I'm not good at social media. I apologize. I promise I'm working on it. Cameron, you got anything to shout out before we get out of here?
Me and Snakebone _ will be showing at the Brooklyn Commons. If you're in New York on the 16th, you can look up SWAT Media. We're going to be showing our work there. I'm an artist, by the way. Follow me at @stow_low on Instagram, but we're going to be showing work there. It's going to be music. It's going to be fun. A lot of people in the community are showing their work. A lot of people of color. It's going to be a great time. So if you're interested, swing through.
Yeah, pull up. Grab your tickets now. July 16th, we'll be there. Brooklyn Commons. That's us. All right. Thank you for listening. Make sure you're understanding your fellow man or woman, or anything in between. Doesn't matter. Peace.